Hi, boys and girls. We're now going to move into decimals and fractions and their relationship using the flipped classroom model. So if you remember what the flipped classroom is, you're actually watching the lectures online, and we come back into class and we work on the assignments. The first topic that we're going to talk about is decimal place value. So if you'll notice, I've got my decimal place value chart, and it includes decimals as well as whole numbers. So let's orient you to what you're actually looking at. So you've got your decimal place value here. Okay. Normally what you guys have learned in class is that you've learned all of your whole numbers. So really your place value chart has always started at the ones and kept on going. And in fourth grade we go all the way up to the millions. So that's all you're used to. But guess what? Once you are at the end of the ones, it actually goes the opposite direction. And it represents all of your decimals in the decimal place value. So you've got here your ones place, and then you've got your decimal, and then here's the 10th spot, which is the beginning place value for decimals. And then once I explain the decimal place value, then we're going to see the relationship between decimals and fractions, and you'll kind of see how really related they are. All right, so the first place value in decimals is the 10th spot. And if you'll notice, relationship here, and we have a relationship here. The only difference is the TH. The TH represents the decimal side. And if you've got your hundredths spot, you'll notice 100, and you've got your hundredths. So do you see a pattern starting to form? Yes, you should. All except the ones place. All the other place values have basically a mirror of place values on each side. So the only difference is that it has TH on the end of it. So it's kind of would be a little bit easier for you to remember the place values because they basically mirror the place values on the whole number side. All right, in this case, we're going to use base 10 blocks to represent the numbers that we're going to be working with to show you examples of decimals. So I've got my base 10 flat, which is 100. We're going to use that to represent the ones place. And then we've got the base 10 rods. We're going to use those to represent the tenths place, which is kind of a relationship because how many blocks are in each rod? You've got 10 of them. So 10 of them, and that actually represents the tenths place. All right, so then you've got your hundredths spot, and we've got little cubes, got the base 10 cubes to represent the hundredths place, which is convenient because how many little cubes does it take to make a flat? 100. So there's your relationship. All right. So in this case, if we have two base 10 rods, two of them would be 2 in the 10th spot. So the decimal that we represent this figure is 2 tenths. Now the way you say decimals is you don't say 0.2 like some people do. You would actually, the formal way to say it is 2 tenths. So you say the number and you say the place value after it. And that's the official way to say it. 100th spot. I have two little cubes here. So the two little cubes would be 2 hundredths. Now in this case, because it's the 100th spot, you want to make sure you put your place saver in the 10th spot because I haven't added any numbers to this to represent the 10th spot. So you have to put your 0 in there, just like when you're multiplying or you're dividing across zeros or across, where you're putting the 0 in the quotient. You actually need to put the placeholder there. So that's the 10th spot, and then your 2 represents 2 in the 100th spot. So the official way to remember how to say a decimal is you say the number, and then you say the place value after it. Now, what happens if you have two numbers? You have a number in the 10th spot and in the 100th spot. For instance, if I were to combine these two, I put 0.22. Oops, did I say that? Shh, don't tell anybody. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do to officially say this decimal number, I'd say 22 because that's the number I see. I say 22. Then I say the place value of the last number that's there. So I'd say 100. So in this case, it would be 22 hundredths because the last 2 is in the 100th spot. If this was this would be 222, and then this last place is a thousandths place. So I'd say 222 thousandths. All right, keep that in mind. Okay, so let's look at some other little representatives I have. All right, so I have another picture of a base 10 block. And in this case, I've got, this is the base 10 flat, and I've got this section colored in. So now let's think about this in fractions. I have how many total spaces? I have 100. Now, how many are colored in? It's one whole rod. So that we know there's 10 of those. So it would be 10 hundredths. Okay. Let's reduce that. If I reduce that down, it would be 1/10. So that's how we say our fractions. We're familiar with that. We're saying 1/10. But let's think about what we're actually saying. What are the words that we're saying? We're saying 1/10. Does that tenth make any relation? 1/10 is also 0.1. How do you say that one? 1/10. So the relationship between fractions and decimals, you say the same thing. It just has two different ways of writing it. One way to represent decimals, one way to represent fractions. Let's say do I have a hundreds? I don't, but I have one of these. All right. So let's do this red one. This red one is not the hundredths, it's actually the tenths. So our fraction, I have rods, and these are the 10 rods going next to each other. So the denominator of our fraction would be 10. So how many are shaded in out of how many total? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 shaded in. What am I saying there? The fraction. How do I say that fraction? 4/10. How would I say it the same way? But then let's think about what that would look like as a decimal. 4/10. A 4 in the 10th spot. So my decimal then would be 4/10. Okay, so the next video, boys and girls, is going to actually use more base 10 blocks to show you more examples of decimals to familiarize you a little bit better. So hopefully this is a start for you. Thanks.